Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join me, Arlene Foster, for the briefing on GB News. Every Friday at 3 p.m, I'll give you all the latest political news and analysis, and we'll have robust live debate. To make sure that you're caught up on all of the biggest issues of the day, we'll bring on experts in their field. I'll ask the questions that you'd like to ask. We're not afraid to tackle discussions from all perspectives, including yours. Don't forget, the briefing with me, Arlene Foster, every Friday at 3 p.m. on GB News.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. There's never been a more interesting but also critical time in British politics, and I can't wait to bring you the biggest stories of the day with the best factual accuracy and also a few of my own opinions thrown in. We'll engage in passionate but always polite debate with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday, 10 till 12 on TV, on radio and online.
No spin, no bias, no censorship. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, Rishi Sunak has pledged to GB News that he'll get tough on illegal migration before admitting that his government's much trumpeted French deal won't be the solution we need.
Know that the number one challenge that people are concerned about right now is illegal migration, which is something that I prioritised in my early conversations with President Macron. I'm glad that that dialogue has led to a deal, and that is going to help us, but it's not.
So, is leaving the ECHR and rewriting modern slavery legislation our only remaining hope of beating the Channel crisis? I'll explore in my digest next, before I bring in my superstar panel. Amanda Platel, Rebecca Reedon making his debut, TV hardman Ant Middleton. They'll be with me all night. As this morning loses out on a TV Choice Award for the first time in 6 years, has Qgate forever damaged the reputation of Holly and Phil? Well, one of them, Mr. Schofield, thinks they've got nothing to apologise for.
Do you want to apologise? Because you've never actually owned the situation or apologised for it. Well, because...
Don't miss Philip Schofield speaking out for the first time on the controversy that almost sunk TV's golden couple in uncancelled at 10:45. Fleet Street icon Calvin and Mackenzie, one of the tens of thousands calling for the duo to be sacked, will give his first reaction too. Are you concerned about what your children are being taught in schools? Lawrence Fox launches a brand new campaign to expel wokeism from the classroom after branding his own son's school an indoctrination centre. He's live with me at 9:30. As the crown comes under fire from the palace and beyond, with Diana's former butler Paul Burrell speaking out here last night.
These are my years, the years which I witnessed, and I'm finding it very difficult to find anything truthful in this series.
The Netflix programme's historical advisor, Robert Lacey, says its stinging criticism of the royals is accurate. He addresses the controversy head-on at 10:20. As he's tipped to launch his re-election campaign in mere hours, despite midterms disappointment, is Trump's status as the saviour of the Republican Party under threat from rising star Ron DeSantis? Well, superstar US journalist Megyn Kelly previews the Donald's big announcement. She's live at 9:45. Plus, as Lord of the Rings actor Andy Serkis speaks out against the cancellation of Hollywood icons, should we still enjoy the art of figures like Woody Allen and John Wayne? Pop culture favourites Pete Waterman and shameless actress Tina Malone do battle with Ernest Owen's author. He's the author of The Case for Cancel Culture. That's in The Clash at 9:20. Tomorrow's front pages and Greatest Britain Uni and Jackass on the way too. This is Dan Wootton Tonight. Let's go. But this is GB News, so you know we do the news first. Breaking situation on the Poland and Russia border tonight. So let's get the latest now with Polly Middlehurst.
Dan, thank you, and good evening to you. We begin tonight's bulletin with the news that NATO is saying it's looking into reports of an explosion on the Polish-Ukrainian border blast close to the border. Unverified local media reports suggested 2 stray missiles hit a grain store in the village of Przewodów. Russia's defence ministry has denied the claims, calling it a deliberate provocation. But Poland's Prime Minister, Mateusz Morawiecki, has called an urgent national security meeting. He's due to make a statement soon. We'll bring you the latest detail on that as we get it. And this comes as Russia launches around 100 missile attacks at Ukrainian cities today in what Kyiv is calling the heaviest wave of strikes since the start of the war. In a video address, Volodymyr Zelensky, the president, said the attacks have hit energy infrastructure, leaving it in a critical condition. Here at home, the Prime Minister has told GB News dealing with illegal migration is his #1 priority. Rishi Sunak was speaking at the G20 summit in Indonesia and also said he wants to reduce legal net migration, but refused to say by how much. The UK signed a deal with France last week in an effort to boost cross-channel cooperation. It comes as the National Crime Agency told GB News many Albanian criminals falsely claim they've been trafficked to the UK against their will. Mr Sunak says tackling migrant crossings is a priority.
Right now, our #1 challenge is getting a grip of the number of illegal migrants coming, and that's the thing I want to focus on first. I think that's what, by the way, the British public rightly want us to focus on. Our deal with the French this week is the first in a series of things that we'll need to do, but people should rest assured that this is a huge priority for me.
The Housing Secretary, Michael Gove, has said the death of a toddler who suffered prolonged exposure to mould is an unacceptable tragedy. 2-year-old Awab Ishak, who lived in a 1-bed council flat in Greater Manchester, died from a respiratory condition directly caused by the mould in December 2020. Rochdale Coroner's Court heard the little boy's father had complained to the local council but was just told to paint over it. Mr Gove says he's demanding answers.
It seems to be inconceivable that the chief executive of a housing association, earning, north of £150,000, who's responsible for decent homes in Rochdale, the fact that this case was raised by Alice's father years ago, the fact that he had to get a solicitor on the case in order to try to make sure that he and his family were living in a decent home, the fact that they did nothing and hid behind procedure. I mean, honestly, it beggars belief that this guy is still in office. He's coming here in order to explain to me why it was that this tragedy was allowed to happen.
Michael Gove. You're up to date on TV, online and DAB+ radio. You're with GB News. More now from Dan Wootton Tonight.
So here's Theresa May speaking as a Remainer Home Secretary in 2016 about why it is imperative the UK leaves the European Convention on Human Rights, known as ECHR, regardless of the Brexit referendum result. Watch.
The ECHR can bind the hands of Parliament, adds nothing to our prosperity, makes us less secure by preventing the deportation of dangerous foreign nationals, and does nothing to change the attitudes of governments like Russia's when it comes to human rights. So regardless of the EU referendum, my view is this: if we want to reform human rights laws in this country, it isn't the EU we should leave, but the ECHR.
Well, here we are, 6 years later, still a member of the ECHR, still unable to protect our borders. And now our southern border as you know, is subject to what the Home Secretary Superwoman Suella Braverman calls an invasion, with 42,000 and counting arriving illegally via small boats on the Channel this year alone. With the disgusting people smuggling gangs emboldened by our light touch approach, by next year we could be into the six figures. Meanwhile, Albanian economic migrants are manipulating May's modern slavery legislation. This isn't what any of us voted for when we left the EU. That decision was about taking back control. I believe Braverman is the only senior government minister who knows much of this discussion is futile until we're out of the ECHR and able to implement sensible and humane plans like the Rwanda scheme or another offshore processing location, which is held up because of lefty lawyers.
Seen firsthand that we can't fix the problem of illegal migration because of human rights claims and because of an interventionist, politicised foreign court in Strasbourg, which is intervening to thwart our domestic policies, as we saw last month on the Rwanda flight. And I'm afraid the only solution to this problem, and if we want to be honest with the British people on delivering on Brexit, on taking back control over our borders, is that we do now need to leave the European Convention of Human Rights. I've pledged that, and I challenge all my fellow candidates to make that similar pledge.
Instead, we have Rishi Sunak talking a good talk, but putting his faith in his new BFF, fellow globalist Emmanuel Macron, which I have to be honest makes me want to scream. The new £64 million deal with France won't even enable illegal migrants to be deported back there. Earlier today, in Bali, our political editor Darren McCaffrey pushed the new PM hard at the G20 summit, but got the usual rhetoric without a hard and fast plan. And actually, what really interested me is that Sunak refused to discuss Braverman's desire for legal migration to be reduced into the tens of thousands.
The deal with the French this week is the first in a series of things that we'll need to do, but people should rest assured that this is a huge priority for me. It's taking up rightly a good chunk of my time because I want to grip it, and I'm going to do whatever it takes to fix this problem.
The Home Secretary thinks it should be done to tens of thousands. Your Home Secretary thinks it should be done to tens of thousands. Do you think it should be done legal migration?
The government's policy and my policy is that we will want to reduce net migration over time, but I don't want to.
250,000 at the moment.
I'm not going to put an arbitrary number on it because I want to be honest with people, and I think right now our number one challenge is getting a grip of the number of illegal migrants coming, and that's the thing I want to focus on first. I think that's what.
Why not put a number on it? I mean, I think Sunak is misunderstanding where the British public are on the need to control migration, including legal migration, and harden our borders. It's only leaving the ECHR and dramatically overhauling our human rights and modern slavery laws so they cannot be exploited by economic migrants backed up by lefty lawyers that will give us a real shot at stopping the boats. The new PM faces oblivion at the next election unless he takes immediate and dramatic action. But to respond now, my superstar panel, esteemed Daily Mail columnist and broadcaster Amanda Patel, the adventurer, author and broadcaster Ant Middleton, and the author and journalist Rebecca Reid. So, Amanda Patel, I don't understand why Rishi Sunak isn't prepared to talk about getting legal migration down to the tens of thousands. I also don't understand why he's not prepared to talk about the ECHR, because if all he's doing is relying on Macron, the boats will not be stopped. They'll be up to 100,000 next year and he will lose the election.
It's very rare that I disagree with you, Dan, but I've got to say, I don't think people are that fussed about people who come into the country legally. I mean, they come in, they pay huge amounts for their visas, they pay their taxes, they're coming here to work, they're doing jobs that we need. In
the hundreds of thousands?
Well, it's not...
Every year?
Well, we do need to bring people into the country. We've got an ageing population. Just park that for a second.
Yes.
What enrages people and what will lose the Tories the next election is the fact that we have boatloads of people come here illegally, pretending they're part of some kind of, 34-year-old blokes who are saying, oh, I'm some kind of sex slave. Like, who would want to? Who would go there if you had to? The whole thing is appalling. We know it's abusive. Theresa May did a terrible thing. I mean, she was all over the place on immigration. She did a terrible thing when she brought in the Modern Slavery Act. that should be gotten rid of immediately in a bill through Parliament. It can be done.
Well, especially since she wanted us out of the ECHR.
So it can be done. It can literally be done tomorrow. And of course, Liz Truss was the one who booted out Dominic Raab's British Bill of Rights. That's what we should have. That's what we were promised, a British Bill of Rights, independent of the ECHR. Is that the right way around?
Yes.
Independent, totally independent of that, respecting the right and believing that we're a country that is decent and has really high moral standards. We don't need to be lectured to by anyone else.
Indeed. And Middleton, firstly, great to have you on the show.
Thank you, Dan.
SAS legend. Maybe not woke enough for Channel 4, but you will fit in very
Definitely
well
not woke
here
enough for
at
Channel
TV
4.
News. And look, this is something right up your alley, isn't it? Because I presume you think we have to focus on border protection.
Yeah, coming from a military background, I'm shocked that, first of all, we let these boats breach our waters, let alone our shores. You know, we don't know who these people are. They dress up as immigrants, you know, they've got a life jacket on, all of a sudden they're OK to let through.
No documentation.
You know, no documentation, no vaccinations if you want to go that far. And also, you know, where do they come from? Who are they? You know, they're getting on boats, they're breaching our shores, and we haven't a clue of who they are. There's no process in place. Even when they get to the UK, there's no sort of detention centres where we need to find out who these unknowns are, because that's exactly what they are. That's how we should treat them, as unknowns. Yes,
And that's
their
a
lives.
risk.
Of course it's a risk.
Because it's also a terrorism risk as well as a crime risk.
Coming from a military background, terrorism, criminals, you name it, we don't know what we're allowing in. Therefore, we're breaching the security of the country and the security for the people of the country.
I agree.
Coming from my background, I'm shocked that our defence forces aren't doing more to stop this happening, because they know the points of call from Dover to Calais. They know where the crossings are. And to think that we're just letting them pass willy-nilly just to come and live, to be whoever they want to be here is not right, and it's not acceptable. And I think that the government need to really stamp down on it, and also the defence forces need to really buck their ideas up.
Rebecca Reid, I know that you are usually on the page of open the borders, let anyone in. When you hear Ant talk about this could actually be putting your safety and security at threat, your daughter's safety and security at threat, surely that's when you have to say enough is enough, let's get a handle on this.
I don't feel sufficiently threatened that I'm tempted by any of the suggestions made today, specifically ID cards. That's what the Mayor of Calais said, that the UK is too welcoming to these people because we don't have ID cards. And the
ID
suggestion
cards
that
is not the solution.
But that's one of the things that's being seriously mooted
what
as
about
a way to crack down on this. That troubles me because first of all, fun fact, did you know who was the leading light of the ECHR when it was originally drafted?
No.
That would be Mr. Winston Churchill. He was the absolute leading exponent of it. So it's very interesting to see people who, absolutely hero worship Winnie saying 2 fingers up to the ECHR.
It was manipulated over generations, Rebecca.
I think it's very important that we have human rights, and I would only be happy to leave the ECHR if we had a very, very robust replacement, which I think, and I hate...
But as Amanda says, British Bill of Rights.
I hate to say this because referenda make me feel a bit queasy, but I think if you're going to do something that important, you have to have a referendum about what the ECHR will be replaced by, because it's one of the most important things defending our rights. It's the reason you can't separate old people in care homes.
I don't think that's necessary, Amanda, is it? Because it was a Tory election promise, the British Bill of Rights. So actually, just go ahead with it.
And Raab's done all the work on it. That idiot Truss sacked him, and, but he's got the works done, and it should be forced through. Originally, I thought that there'd be no chance of doing that before the next election. But I spoke to some legal people today, and they said, actually, it is there for the taking if we have the will. And we've still got a majority, the Tories still have a majority. If they do not sort out this border problem, if they do not sort this out, they have not got hope.
But then they've got better options, I would argue, than leaving the ECHR, which would be to make the legal route for the people we do need and want, for instance, care providers. We have a care crisis in this country, and it's only getting worse as the population ages. A better, more accessible legal route.
There's lots of legal routes, as I say every week.
But they're convoluted and expensive and confusing.
I disagree with that. But Rebecca Reid and Middleton, Amanda Patel, my superstar panel, they're here with me all night, so there's lots more of that to come. But also on the way, are you worried about wokeism in the classroom? Well, Lawrence Fox launched launches a new campaign to make sure facts come before feelings after branding his own son's school an indoctrination centre. He's live on that at 9:30. But first, as Lord of the Rings actor Andy Serkis speaks out against the cancellation of Hollywood icons, should we still enjoy the art of figures like Woody Allen and John Wayne? Well, showbiz favourites Pete Waterman and Tina Malone battle Ernest Stars. Now, Ernest, he is the author of a book called The Case for Cancel Culture, so I think there'll be quite a clash that's coming up straight after the break. Want to know what you think too? Dan at gbnews.uk. You can vote in our poll at GB News. See you very soon.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join me, Arlene Foster, for the briefing on GB News. Every Friday at 3 p.m, I'll give you all the latest political news and analysis, and we'll have robust live debate. To make sure that you're caught up on all of the biggest issues of the day, we'll bring on experts in their field. I'll ask the questions that you'd like to ask. We're not afraid to tackle discussions from all perspectives, including yours. Don't forget, the briefing with me, Arlene Foster, every Friday at 3 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me, noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
Time now for the clash. Hollywood virtue signallers have often been at the forefront of cancel culture, but actor Andy Serkis, best known for playing Gollum in Lord of the Rings, has refreshingly spoken out against the denigration of icons like Woody Allen and John Wayne, and those unable to separate the art from the artist. Asked how the contemporarily racist views of Wayne, who died in 1979 and denied allegations of child sexual abuse against Annie Hall director Allen, impact enjoyment of their movies, Serkis asked, does art transcend the human that created it? We know countless examples of brilliant pieces of art, film, music, culture that have been created by people that we no longer think of as good people. I still find it difficult not to watch a Woody Allen film because they're brilliant movies. It's very hard to emotionally disconnect from some artworks. Well, of course, I'm keen for your verdict on this. Should we still enjoy art created by cancelled celebrities like John Wayne or Woody Allen? Dan at gbnews.uk. Tweet me at gbnews. Vote in our poll too. But to battle it out now, help you make your mind up, it is shameless actress Tina Malone. author of the upcoming book, The Case for Cancel Culture, Ernest Owens, there it is, and renowned music producer, one of the best, Pete Waterman. So, Pete, this doesn't feel right to me. I think we have to be able to enjoy the work of these legends, right?
Absolutely. You can't cancel history. Right or wrong, you can't cancel it. And, you know, the biggest of all these is Wagner. I mean, would you agree on Wagner's choice of Anti-Sesame? Of course you wouldn't. It's absolutely appalling. But his music is absolutely amazing. John Wayne's films are amazing. Would I watch that Woody Allen? I didn't find Woody Allen that funny anyway, but you can't suddenly deny it because of allegations or even absolute acts.
Well, no, indeed. And the problem is, when you go down this path, you know who's next? Shakespeare. And Ernest Owens, I mean, look, you're actually saying we should embrace cancel culture? I mean, this show is fighting against cancel culture and you're writing a book saying, yay, let's celebrate cancelling people. Why?
Because I think that it's a form of democracy, you know. We have a choice as individuals to choose what kind of, you know, things we want to support and who we like. And isn't it our right to choose who we want to support and who we don't? When we go to the polls, don't we cancel an elected official?
Well, of course. But what if I want to watch a John Wayne movie? You're saying that's the wrong thing to do.
I personally think it is, but I don't think that everyone should be forced to have to agree. You know, I personally have made the decision that I don't support, you know, Woody Allen, R. Kelly, Kanye West, because I think these people represent bad ideas. And I think that if you really care about the communities you live in and you represent the values, you want to affiliate yourself with things that don't represent your values. I mean, isn't that what a democracy looks like? I mean, I live in America, so for me, it's very much so.
Yeah, and you love cancel culture over there. My God. Tina Malone, where do you stand on this one?
I kind of agree with Pete. I mean, you know, if you look, we wouldn't read Alice in Wonderland to our children if we looked at the behaviour of Lewis Carroll. You know, he was a heroin addict. And Matisse, you know, would we take his pictures out of museums because he was it was supposed, or, you know, that he was a paedophile. But I do think you can separate the art and the genius from the behaviour. I mean, there's a lot of people socially and ethically that I work with who are brilliant actors, but I wouldn't go out with them for a drink because I don't believe in what they believe in politically or socially or ethically.
But Tina, I'm going to call you. But I'm going to call you out on that. Actually, you know, so I'm going to call you out on that, Tina.
We wouldn't listen to Beethoven and Mozart and John Lennon if we listened to everything that they said. And also,
Tina,
I do think every case is an individual case because if you look, we already cancelled. People
Tina,
like
hello.
Michael Jackson.
Listen to me, Tina.
Cancelled Kevin Spacey. I mean, you know, they were proved innocent.
I don't know if Tina can hear me.
So,
Tina, can you hear me?
Where do you draw the line?
To Tina. Tina Malone, can you hear me?
I never liked Jimmy Savile or Rolf Harris anyway. I thought they were creepy. But I'm not going to not watch Bullets Over Broadway
I love this woman.
or Hannah and Her Sisters and how
She's
it affected
taken over.
me. Even if Woody Allen is a little pave and a creep and whatever else. But at the same time, I can value his art. I just can.
Okay. I don't think you can hear me, Tina. Can you hear me? No.
Yes.
No. Oh, you can? Okay.
Well done, Tina. We love you.
Pete, she's the only person who shut me up. Well, Tina, I was just going to say, I want to pick you up on the fact that you say you wouldn't go out for dinner or drinks with an actor who you work with if you have different political views to them. I mean, I find that so upsetting, and I think it's the terrible thing about your industry. No, go out for the drinks, go out for the dinner, have a reasoned debate, and be friends with people you disagree with.
I wouldn't have dinner with. Well, yeah, I actually am saying I wouldn't have dinner with a Tory, but that's a whole nother story. Get me on about a different. But what I'm saying is that there's certain ways of life, you know, I've mixed with actors who,
I'm going to bring Pete in here now. Pete, I think Tina has actually just represented the issue of cancel culture, Pete.
I put it off, you know what I mean?
Okay, Pete, come in, because I think Tina has actually just reflected what I'm talking about. I mean, how appalling that she wouldn't go for dinner with a Tory. I find that appalling, Pete.
Well, yeah, I think Tina's a little bit exaggerated there. Of course she would. I think you may argue with them, but that's what politics are all about. I mean, if you can't have the opposite opinion, we can't all agree. I think that's great. I think that this whole counterculture thing is very American, if I may say so.
Yeah.
I mean, you know.
But it's spreading here, isn't it?
Well,
it is spreading here.
When you've got a book out and he holds the book up, I think he's absolutely doing himself a pat. Hold that book up. There you go.
Oh, not again.
I think he's doing
not
a pat
again.
good here. He's doing a
Have
great.
a bevy till you're 21.
I mean, this is where we.
Wait that out. No disrespect. I love America.
Yeah.
I love New York. I love Louisiana. But I'm not being funny. I mean, you know, they can't really lecture us on what we should and shouldn't
Well, let me give
do,
Ernest a
what's
chance
morally
here.
right.
Let me give Ernest a chance here.
Some of the rules are bizarre, frankly.
Ernest, how do you want to respond to all of this?
You know, I would just say that everyone has their own, everyone is canceling, right? How
I'm not. I'm not.
You're canceling. A lot of the things on your show I don't support. Here, listen, what's funny is that
got you here.
Yes, and that's great. But here's the difference, though. What we're talking about amongst ourselves is not a difference of political opinion. Some of these people have done some very predatory things that have created an unsafe environment. Like, do we think that Harvey Weinstein should be canceled? Or what about, you know, Maxwell?
Well, I'm going to watch his movies. Some of his movies, Ernest, are my favourite movies of all time. Osage, what was it called? August Osage County, one of my favourite movies of all time. I'm going to watch it. I don't care that Weinstein produced it. I'm sorry.
You can watch it. Here's the thing.
I know John Wayne was a racist.
But okay, it's okay for you all to watch.
I don't like his movies anyway.
Okay, Tina, just let Ernest finish off.
Sorry.
It's okay for people to like these things, right? If they want to. But what I'm saying is that there are some spaces and places that will not promote it, and that's okay. And I think that that's where I stand with it. Like I think it's okay for people to decide to cancel or companies to make a decision not to air things on their channels because it's a free market and a free enterprise. You all support capitalism and you all want that free market, and that gives them the liberty to make those decisions.
I do, but the problem is, Ernest, the people running these companies, they're all woke. They are all woke, they all think the same as you, and what they want to shut down is opposing political views. But look, Tina, I'm going to have you back because this whole I wouldn't go for dinner with a Tory thing, I find that so disturbing.
No, I wouldn't actually, but there you go.
OK, well, look, we're going to talk about that another time because that's enraged me. Shameless actress Tina Malone, author of The Case for Cancel Culture, Ernest Owens, and the legendary music producer Pete Waterman. Thank you all. So who do you agree with? Should we still enjoy the art of figures like Woody Allen and John Wayne? Elliot says, of course, sooner or later, you just have to accept that no artist is a saint and separate the work from its creator. With some that may be hard to do, but with those who were simply of their time or of different cultures, well, aren't we all? From David, if we don't separate the art from the person, there will be no art and the world will be a very dreary place. And Sean says, we should still enjoy their work. At the end of the day, these guys were craftsmen. And your verdict is now in. Well, 95% of you with me and Pete in this, agreeing that we should still enjoy the art of the likes of Woody Allen and John Wayne. Just 5% of you wanting to do the whole cancellation thing like Ernest. OK, coming up, as Trump is tipped to launch his re-election campaign in mere hours, should he receive the Republican backing or could Florida Governor Ron DeSantis win the fight for the soul of the party? US legendary journalist Megyn Kelly joins me shortly. But first, are you concerned about what your children are being taught in schools? Reclaim leader Lawrence Fox launches a brand new campaign to expel wokeism from the classroom after branding his own son's school an indoctrination centre. He's with me live in the studio straight after the break.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. There's never been a more interesting but also critical time in British politics, and I can't wait to bring you the biggest stories of the day with the best factual accuracy and also a few of my own opinions thrown in. We'll engage in passionate but always polite debate with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday, 10 till 12 on TV, on radio and online.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something good happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky.
That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg.
And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak. Stop talking.
My God, we reached the end. I've never been early in my life. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing. You see, amazing.
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Now, Reclaim leader Lawrence Fox has echoed the deep concerns of many parents across the country after he shared an email from his son's school, or as he calls it, the indoctrination centre. So this is a note sent to parents that said diversity, equality and inclusion is a key priority of the school, adding we have workshops taking place for students this week. Getting everything right is definitely not a quick fix, and we are deeply committed to doing the necessary work over the long term. We're sick to the back teeth of academic commissars sneaking in wokeism behind parents' backs. Lawrence is tonight launching a new campaign with the Bad Law Project to put an end to secrecy in schools. It's all about reclaiming the debate in classrooms and teaching facts, not woke. And I'm delighted that Lawrence, soon to be a permanent presenter here at GB News, joins me in the studio. Congratulations, by the way. I'm very happy for you, and I know we'll hear news of your show soon, so it's coming soon. But let's talk about this campaign, because, Lawrence, I saw your tweet and I felt a visceral sense of frustration. And I guess what you're trying to do is help other parents who are in the same position and don't know how to deal with these woke schools.
Well, yeah, thank you, Dan. It's very difficult for parents to believe that when their children are in, when someone is in loco parentis, that they're not being taught the 3 R's. But if you actually, my experience began with my eldest son. So I said to him, "Can I have a good night hug?" And he went, "No, you have to ask my consent."
What?
And I went, "What?" I said that. And he said, "Yeah, you have to ask me my consent. They taught me this at school." So I went, "OK, I'm going to be writing an email to the school." So I wrote an email to the school, and I said, "What's this?" And they said, "Yeah, it's consent. We deal with that at this period." And I said, "Well, I've just taught both of my children consent to year 9 level, which is you don't touch people's private parts. That's consent." And then I thought, this is interesting. So I emailed my youngest son's school and asked them for their PSHE and RSE education plans, lesson plans. And I found in there that they teach gender ideology, critical race theory, white privilege, diversity, equity, and inclusion. And I'm sat there going, hang on a minute, this is a 10-year-old boy. Why are you teaching him this stuff? And I found it so spooky because what's happening is we used to have segregated spaces, didn't we, in life? So this thing that I've been sharing online, which much to the chagrin of my local school, hopefully they'll pull it, is that we used to have segregated spaces over race in reality in the world. But now what they're doing is they're putting them in the minds of our young children. They're teaching them this. And I think that schools need to be called out for this because it's very, very, very dangerous. And children do not see skin colour. No. They don't. My son's mates are all different skin colours. They don't see it.
And this is what's so sad. They are actually educating division. Because when I was at school, it was all about we live in a colourblind world. You shouldn't worry about anyone's race or colour. And now you're told that if you have that philosophy, you're racist. It is insanity.
It's very, very dangerous. Also, this idea is what's going to happen is you're just going to make a lot of racist kids because they're going to be hyper-racialised. They're going to be aware of someone's skin colour before they are of their personality.
This is happening. And, of course, if you're a young, white, working-class boy, factually one of the most underprivileged groups in British society, it's actually going to be pretty easy, isn't it, to think, hang on a moment, why am I being taught that I'm privileged?
Exactly. Well, the idea of white privilege is disgusting and abhorrent, and it should be thrown out along with all other racist ideas. We've thrown out everything else, so let's get rid of this idea of white privilege. You can have majority privilege within a culture. You have that all the time. But in terms of white skin colour privilege, immutable privilege, it's absolutely disgusting. And the school in question that I've been attacking today, my own son's school, has been extremely vehement in terms of coming back at me. And there's been a huge amount coming back at me, and I'm just going, look, I made you a documentary. This school is a Stonewall's Young Champions school. It promotes gender ideology. It promotes the idea that a boy can become a girl, which is factually impossible. And I am saying to them, stop teaching my kids this stuff. Start teaching them how to read and write. I looked at my reports when I was 7 years old. My first poem that I wrote when I was 7 years old at school, it's years ahead of what my kids are able to do. Years ahead, because they're too busy teaching this disgusting stuff to our kids. And I think it needs to be banned. I think the ideologues that run it need to be removed from schools. And schools need to be returned to places of learning, not places of indoctrination.
It's so interesting because I was going through all of the documentation today that you've put together as a resource to parents who are in the same position. And it's lots of practical stuff, isn't it? So it's actually things that parents can email schools about particular subject areas, for example, or if their children are taught things. But fundamentally, Lawrence, as the documents point out, it's actually against the law if they go down this highly politicised path. So isn't there also, not to want to get too political about this, but isn't there also a role here for the Conservative government, which has a wonderful person like Kemi Badenoch, sadly not in the role of Education Secretary, who has actually said this cannot be taught. This is illegal. You cannot be doing this. The Tories have to toughen up, don't they, on the schools, the woke schools?
Well, I mean, the Tories have to toughen up on everything, don't they? To be fair, we're about to see the end of the Tory party on Thursday, I would say, as Labour
the budget from hell.
As Labour overtake them as the party of low tax, which whoever would have thought that sentence would have come out.
Insanity.
But Kemi Badenoch is an amazing woman, and she spoke very firmly about critical race theory and critical theory in general. And you notice she vanished from the front benches very, very quickly. So our job here, and what we're going to do, is we're providing, via the Bad Law Project, and we're going to call it Bad Education, because it is bad education, an absolutely impossible to refuse letter for parents. It's free to download on badlaw.com, and you can send that to school, and they won't be able to tell you, oh no, we're protected by GDPR, whatever Twinkle says, or whatever these little Black History Month or non-binary questioning month, or whatever month we're in where you can't respond. The school will have to respond to the parents with the lesson plans of PSHE. And you know what we need to do? We need to return this country, PSHE, which is Personal, Social, Health, Economic. Sounds really friendly, doesn't it? It's not. It's absolutely vile. It has no standardised curriculum whatsoever, so any school can choose what they want to teach it. We need to teach kids civic responsibility, good manners, helping people across the road, not shoplifting, looking after one another. This is the stuff our kids need to learn. They don't need to learn that they can pop on a dress at 11 years old and become a bloke or a girl.
What about parents who are concerned that if they take the strident approach that you have taken with your son's school, that it's going to in some way reflect on their child? Because I know lots of parents are furious but worried to take on the school.
Get some courage. It's your child's education, it's their future you're talking about. I've had a huge backlash. I put our documentary Groomed, which went viral, on our school's WhatsApp group, because they're all talking about Ukraine and how we should do bake sales for Ukraine. So it's not a non-political WhatsApp group. And I put it on and I was called a racist homophobe by one of the parents for doing it. And I'm like, you can call me a racist homophobe all you want, but your child is being taught that a boy can become a girl, and that's not true. So why don't we just teach them to think, to read great poetry, to read all of the poets and writers and great literary geniuses of the whole history of Britain who are now being cancelled one after another, so that this equity movement, this diversity, equity and inclusion movement can drag the greatest meritocratic members of our society down to nothing so they can fit in with those that feel most aggrieved. It's absolutely appalling. And it needs to stop. And a Conservative government by name would put an end to it, along with immigration, immediately.
Lawrence Fox, very powerful message. Great to see you, and we await news of your new show coming very soon. Thank you, Lawrence. But coming up, as Rishi Sunak and Jeremy Hunt prepare to announce what I just described as a budget from hell, why are the MSM determined to convince us that it's all the fault of Liz Truss and not the lockdowns? Plus, as she's photographed wearing a mask in a flu jab photo op, is scheming surgeon addicted to spreading fair porn? I'll tackle all of that with my superstar panel, including Ant Middleton tonight in the Media Buzz after 10. But first, as he's tipped to launch his re-election campaign in mere hours, despite midterm's disappointment, is Trump's status as the saviour of the Republican Party under threat from Ron DeSantis? Megyn Kelly previews the Donald's big announcement live stateside straight after the break.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday. And there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. Over a drink, we have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
To each and every one of you.
for helping our great nation.
Find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland,
Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV.
On radio.
and online.
We're proud to be
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Mark Steyn. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Dubes & Kerr. Me and my panel will get stuck right into the day's events, and I can tell you, in fact, I can warn you, expect some robust debate, some strong opinions and perspectives from both sides of the fence. It's about you at home as well. I love to read out all of your comments, or at least as many as I can. So join me, Michelle Dewberry, Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on Dubes & Kerr.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
It's Megyn Kelly time, and we're just hours away now from Donald Trump's highly anticipated Mar-a-Lago press conference as the world waits to see if he's going to shake off the midterm disappointment to announce a third presidential bid. Now, he was in typically confident mood before the predicted Republican red wave turned into a, shall we say, a red trickle at last week's crunch vote.
Well, I think if they win, I should get all the credit, and if they lose, I should not be blamed at all, okay? But it'll probably be just the opposite. When they win, I think they're going to do very well. I'll probably be given very little credit, even though in many cases I told people to run.
Now, after the midterm disappointment, Trump lashed out at his likely challenger for the White House, Ron DeSantis, who won a landslide election in the Florida governor race, branding him Ron DeSanctimonious. Well, today, DeSantis came out swinging as he finally responded to the attacks from the former president. Watch.
At the end of the day, I would just tell people to go check out the scoreboard from last Tuesday night. You know, the fact of the matter is, it was the greatest Republican victory in the history of the state of Florida.
Megyn Kelly, well, so much to unpick here, but look, let me ask you first, what do you think we're going to hear from Trump? Is this going to be a formal announcement of a presidential campaign?
It's always so terrifying to predict what Donald Trump is going to do. But yeah, if I had to put money on it, yes, I expect a presidential run announcement. I expect it to have some fanfare. I expect him to have some VIPs there. Word on the street is that he's invited quite a few. I've talked to some who are invited as well. So he's definitely gearing up for a major announcement tonight. And today he tweeted out some things, or truthed out on his social network, pictures of himself 2024 and like a flying leap. You know, I mean, if this is not a presidential run, yeah, if this is not an announcement of that, it's going to be the greatest, switcheroo ever done by a politician. And my own take on it, Dan, is people need to take a breath, okay? Because the people who are over Trump are salivating over DeSantis. And, Trump's done. He's the worst. He's politically toxic to everybody. Everything he touches turns to, you know what? And they want him to just step aside. I get it. But you know what? It's a presidential primary, and he doesn't have to. That's not the way our system works. His voters get a say. He gets a run. And if you don't like it, too bad. That's not the way politics works. It's there for the good of the country. You know what? He doesn't see the good of the country resting with him not running. And, for the people who love Trump and are saying DeSantis just really shouldn't run. He shouldn't run. It's going to get ugly. To them, too. DeSantis is allowed to go in there and swing for it. Why shouldn't he? If he doesn't, he could wind up like Chris Christie, who we all tried to anoint at one point in 2012, I think. He decided not to run, and then his career totally imploded, and he was never able to run again. He couldn't even sell 14 books. So if I were DeSantis, I'd be accurately calculating maybe now or never, and the stars are, with me, and the wind is at my back, and I might as well give it. It's going to get ugly. That's true. Trump is not going to go easy on DeSantis. And I think DeSantis, as much as he would like to take the high road, you can't really when you're fighting Trump. I mean, look at what he did to all those guys he was up against in that primary. They all tried to take the high road, and eventually they all got pulled down into the gutter fight that Trump's going to make it. It's part of doing business with him. And so what I say, Dan, is it's on. It's American politics. It's rough. It's rowdy. It ain't beanball, as they say. Let's go.
My goodness, this is going to be one heck of a 2 years there. And apparently, there's currently some sort of plane above Mar-a-Lago calling Donald Trump a loser in one of those banners. So it is very much on. I think it's really fascinating point that you make, though, Megyn. because DeSantis just didn't even want to talk about Trump today, and that's unrealistic, isn't it? He's going to have to talk about Trump. He's going to have to engage.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? If he doesn't, if he just stays the course with never engaging him for the next 8-9 months until the rest of the presidential candidates declare, because typically it happens in the late spring. So if he says nothing, he doesn't respond to him at all, he's going to get dinged up and badly. That means allowing Donald Trump to control the narrative. Because while DeSantis has had several wins since he became governor, he's not in the news every week. It's not like the news cycle revolves around Ron DeSantis and what he's doing in Florida. Occasionally he pops up and we cover it and the Republicans go crazy for him. But if Trump day after day after day is slinging the mud and saying the terrible things and DeSantis just keeps governing, honestly, I don't see that as a very effective strategy because Trump can hurt you. He will ding DeSantis up with the core base, the 35%. There was a new poll out today showing there had been 2 suggesting DeSantis was in the lead over Trump by about 7 points. Today there was one giving Trump the clear lead by more than that. So Trump can hurt you. He can do a lot of damage, and DeSantis is going to learn that the hard way if he never responds.
But Megan, I guess the key question for me is after what happened last week in the midterms, which has unquestionably damaged the Trump brand, I think we can concede that this wasn't a good midterm result for him.
No.
Is there a chance DeSantis could beat him in the primaries? Because up until now, the Republicans who I've been talking to, including people who are close to Trump and people who aren't close to Trump, so from both ends of the Republican spectrum, had said, look, if Trump runs, he wins. But has the midterm changed that now?
It may have, and we need more data points. We haven't seen enough polling. The Trump base are the ones who get to decide that. Is the answer. And so far, the core Trump base, because I talk to him on my show every day, I've been watching the polls, I would be very shocked if they wavered on their love for Trump. He got them off the bench. They weren't active voters. They voted because of him. They're not really Republicans. They're Trumplicans. Yeah. And so will they leave that party to go vote for someone who's Trump light? I don't think so, Dan. I've been saying this all along. I don't. Now, what does that do? Does it mean that DeSantis cannot win a primary? No, it maybe if he can grow the rest of the party behind him and Trump just sticks with his core 35%, perhaps DeSantis could win. It would require all the others falling away. All the non-Trump lane must consolidate against Trump. That's how he won the first time. He splintered the field and he got, the 35%, which is enough to put him over the top. So if there'd have to be no splintered field. It'd have to be, man to man. But the thing is, if DeSantis beats Trump, I have the same question. What do the Trump core voters do? The Trumplicans. Do they vote for DeSantis? They're going to be ticked off at DeSantis. Do you think Trump's going to be like, I lost fair and square. Now let's all get behind Ron. Really? Okay.
No way. No way.
We'll see.
And he'll probably hint at an independent run.
He could do an independent run, and he could definitely be a spoiler for the GOP ticket in the general election. To that, I say, look, this is what the Republicans voted for. They brought this on themselves. I realize not the entire party wanted Trump, but Trump won, and the party came home. That's how he won. So now you must deal with the strength that you created, and no one feels sorry for you. It's going to be a bloody battle. It's going to play out the way the American electorate wants it to play out, and no one should be crying in their soup. As Rick Grinnell said on my show last week, put on your big boy pants, and it's on.
Yeah. And you know what? All of these folk in the political establishment and the MSM, including the Republican establishment, who think, oh, this is the chance to slam Trump. Actually, when it comes to his base, that could well just be working in his favour because he loves having that opposition. Megyn Kelly, star US journalist, host of the brilliant Megyn Kelly Show. Thank you so much. And of course, you can find that show on Sirius XM, YouTube, and as a podcast. Thank you, Megyn. But coming up, as the crown comes under fire from the palace and beyond, Robert Lacey, he is the historical advisor behind the controversial series. He's finally going to answer to those claims of royal misrepresentation. He's live with me at 10:20. But first, as Rishi Sunak and Jeremy Hunt prepare to hit ordinary folk with a budget from hell, why the MSM determined to convince us that it's all Liz Truss's fault and nothing to do with the lockdowns and, that 450 billion pounds we spent. My superstar panel tonight featuring the debut of TV hardman Ant Middleton. Join me to debate that and more in the Media Buzz That's after the break.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Join me, Arlene Foster, for the briefing on GB News. Every Friday at 3 p.m, I'll give you all the latest political news and analysis, and we'll have robust live debate. To make sure that you're caught up on all of the biggest issues of the day, we'll bring on experts in their field. I'll ask the questions that you'd like to ask. We're not afraid to tackle discussions from all perspectives, including yours. Don't forget, the briefing with me, Arlene Foster, every Friday at 3 p.m. on GB News.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. There's never been a more interesting but also critical time in British politics, and I can't wait to bring you the biggest stories of the day with the best factual accuracy and also a few of my own opinions thrown in. We'll engage in passionate but always polite debate with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday, 10 till 12 on TV, on radio and online.
It's 10 p.m. I'm Dan Wootton. Tonight, Rishi Sunak and Jeremy Hunt's budget from hell is looming with a council tax hike that will push average bills beyond £2,000 a year. The latest shocker due to be unveiled. But who is to blame for the economic agony we're facing? The MSM are determined to convince you it's all the fault of Liz Truss and the mini budget.
No one has taken responsibility. Will you now say to the British people, let them say, I'm sorry they messed up. Because ultimately, to put this to bed, though, can you just say you are sorry?
But with even the Bank of England admitting the COVID-era money printing sent inflation out of control, why isn't anyone pointing the finger at lockdown? I'll debate that next with my superstar panel. Amanda Patel, Rebecca Reader making his debut here, TV hardman Ant Middleton. As this morning loses out on a TV Choice Award for the first time in 6 years, has Qgate forever damaged the reputation of Holly and Phil? Here's what happened when half of Telly's former golden couple went on the record about the scandal for the very first time.
Do you want to apologise? Because you've never actually owned the situation or apologised for it. Well, because...
That's right, Philip Schofield finally speaks out following that damning defeat in Uncancelled at 10:45. Fleet Street icon Calvin McKenzie, one of the tens of thousands calling for the duo to be sacked, by the way, will give his reaction as well. As The Crown comes under fire from the palace and beyond, with Diana's former butler Paul Burrell speaking out here last night.
These are my years, the years which I witnessed, and I'm finding it very difficult to find anything truthful in this series.
The Netflix programme's historical advisor Robert Lacey says its stinging criticism of the royals is accurate, so he's going to address the controversy head-on at 10:20. Tomorrow's newspaper front pages and Greatest Britain Union Jackass on the way too, so do stay up with us tonight. But first, the news headlines with Polly Middlehurst.
Dan, thank you, and good evening to you. The Polish government tonight says it's raising the readiness of its military units following reports of a fatal missile strike in the east of the country. 2 people died following an explosion close to Poland's border with Ukraine. Unverified local media reports suggest 2 stray missiles hit a grain store near the village of Przewodów. Russia's defence ministry has denied responsibility, calling it a deliberate provocation. Ukraine's President Zelensky described the incident as a significant escalation of the conflict. NATO Secretary-General Jens Stoltenberg says they're now monitoring the situation with allies closely consulting. Well, that comes as Russia launched around 100 missiles at Ukrainian cities today in what Kyiv is calling the heaviest wave of strikes since the start of the war. In a video address, Volodymyr Zelensky said the attacks have hit energy infrastructure, leaving it in a critical condition. The Prime Minister has told GB News today dealing with illegal migration is his #1 challenge. Rishi Sunak also said he wants to reduce legal net migration, but refused to say by how much. The UK signed a deal with France last week in an effort to boost cross-channel cooperation. It comes as the National Crime Agency told GB News many Albanians are falsely claiming they're being trafficked to the UK against their will. Mr Sunak says tackling migrant crossings is a priority.
Right now, our #1 challenge is getting a grip of the number of illegal migrants coming, and that's the thing I want to focus on first. I think that's what, by the way, the British public rightly want us to focus on. Our deal with the French this week is the first in a series of things that we'll need to do, but people should rest assured that this is a huge priority for me.
The Housing Secretary, Michael Gove, says the death of a toddler who suffered prolonged exposure to mould is an unacceptable tragedy. 2-year-old Ayab Ishak, who lived in a 1-bed council flat in Greater Manchester, died from a respiratory condition directly caused by the mould in December 2020. Rochdale Coroner's Court heard the little boy's father had complained to the local council but was just told to paint over it. The Chief Executive of Rochdale Borough-wide Housing, Gareth Swarbrick, says we have and will continue to learn hard lessons from this. You're up to date on TV, online and DAB+ radio. You're with GB News. Time now for part 2 of Dan Wootton Tonight.
Tomorrow's news site now in our Media Buzz. The first front pages are in, and the National leads on the SNP, accusing the Scottish Conservatives of spreading fake news over claims that police officers in the country are on strike. The Scottish Police Federation confirmed police are not legally allowed to strike. However, the Conservatives insisted the disputed social media graphic, quote, correctly highlighted the wave of disruption caused by the SNP's inaction over pay disputes. The Daily Mail reports that universities are being told by the Quality Assurance Agency, which monitors degree standards, to go woke across the board and consider critical race theory. According to the paper, the watchdog even wants courses like sciences and maths to teach about colonialism. My superstar panel back now from that newspaper, star Daily Mail columnist Amanda Platel, the adventurer, author and broadcaster Ant Middleton, and the author and journalist Rebecca Reid. Now, as we gear up for the Tories' big state high-tax budget from hell on Thursday, that's what I'm calling it, the latest bad news is that annual council tax bills are set to soar past £2,000 for the average household. And while the unelected globalists Sunak and Hunt have much to answer for, Sly News party gal Beth Rigby was way off the mark, as usual, as she hectored and blundered her way through a gotcha interview with the PM demanding an apology for the Truss Kwarteng mini-budget look.
If you want to move on for this, don't you need to start by saying sorry to the British people about what's just passed?
On the steps of Downing Street, when I first became Prime Minister...
You said mistakes were made.
I said mistakes were made, and I said part of the reason that I became Prime Minister was to fix them.
No one's apologised.
And what we...
In terms of what happened, no one apologised. no one has taken responsibility. Will you now say to the British people, let them say, I'm sorry they messed up. Can you just, to put this to bed, though, can you just say you are sorry?
An acknowledgement that mistakes were made.
But you don't want to apologise, I get it.
What I want to do now is fix them.
Oh, change the record, Beth. That's not journalism. By the way, outside the MSN bubble, we're actually aware the upcoming cuts have been influenced by the cost of lockdown crisis, that's what I call it, which was so ardently pushed by broadcasters like yours. Indeed, last week, top Bank of England official Hugh Pill admitted at last that the country's money printing spree during COVID played a key part in driving up inflation. What a surprise. So, Amanda Patel, look, this is going to be a budget from hell. I think it's going to put the Tory party on life support, if I'm honest. But I'm really annoyed about the dishonesty about why we are here. We are not here because of the mini budget. Maybe it didn't help the situation, but we are here because of the £450 billion we spent over the 2 years of COVID.
Including 70 billion on furlough, where people just got to stay at home and not work.
Yeah, when a lot of them wanted to work, by the way. They didn't want to be locked up.
And a lot of big companies just took the money and farmed their people off. It was disgusting. I just want Beth Rigby to say sorry for being such an appalling, irritating presenter. I mean, you know, and that frock. I mean, crikey, did she lose her luggage at the airport in Thailand? Or Bali, or wherever they were.
You know, I don't talk about women's clothing. You all look beautiful tonight, and I love both your outfits.
And she is so irritating. That old trick that Paxman did like 1,000 years ago. Tell me you're sorry. Give me this answer. Tell me you're sorry. It's really boring television. Yeah. And it's no wonder Sky's viewing figures are going through the toilet.
No, definitely.
Which is where they belong.
Absolutely. I obviously
But there's
agree
this whole notion, on an even more serious matter, this whole notion of a referendum. I know it was promised, but no one's going to vote for that. Who's going to vote to say, hey, come on, Anne, let's go down to the booths and let's say double my council tax so I can pay for all the incompetence. The whole idea is dead. We have to accept there are going to be so many stealth taxes that we haven't even heard about yet. And who's going to be clobbered? It's going to be the 31 million people in this country, including everybody in this studio, all of us, who actually work.
But Anne, doesn't this risk the reputation for the Conservative Party forever? Because they're meant to be a low-tax party. That's one of the reasons why people have supported them in such big numbers. You know, low tax, small state, and now that's going to be burnt.
Yeah, what shocks me is their inability to read the room. You know, to get down on ground level and to read it from where we come from, or to see the situation from where we come from. The cost of lockdown, which it is, people can't afford to pay their rent. People can't afford to pay their mortgages. People can't afford to put the heating on, let alone, you know, up the council tax. Yeah. It just shocks me, the inability to put themselves to the ground level, to read the room and to go, right, listen, people are struggling, even living, even food. Look at the cost of lockdown for food. Everything is, the inflation is crazy. Even for the middle class, and people are struggling out there. And now you want to up the council tax. It's like, extract your head from your derriere and have a good look at the world around you, and to put yourself on that ground level and see it from the people's point of view, which they have an inability to do so. Yeah. And it's infuriating, really, when you look at it, because they're there, you know, having a good old jolly up in the Houses of Parliament, and they don't know the real world. Yeah. You know, they're...
I mean, I don't think... I think that's such a good point, actually, because I don't think, Rebecca, there has ever been a disconnect so dramatic between Westminster and the people. I think Anne is right. I don't think they have any idea about what ordinary, hard-working folk are having to face.
I mean, I think there probably is an element of truth in that. I don't share other people's issue that Rishi Sunak can't understand because he's very, very wealthy. We've had lots of very wealthy prime ministers who were able to understand, and I think Rishi is probably doing the best he can because nobody wants to put up taxes. No one wants to be the prime minister who puts.
Yeah, but he signed all of the checks.
I totally understand, but I don't think his game plan was to be Prime Minister right now. I think his game plan was to be Prime Minister in 5 years' time when everyone had forgotten about this. I think in terms of the general issue of MPs not understanding what real life is like, I think that's absolutely true, but that's because we attract the wrong people to be MPs. I say this a lot. I think you could solve that problem by making salaries for MPs much higher, therefore attracting the kind of people who are not from traditional backgrounds, who might be tempted to go into banking or law because they want to make money, going in and having the cleverest and best people being MPs, I think, and also encouraging more people who didn't go to Eton would be a really good start.
But they're caught up in a knot of lies. You know, if they just said, look, this is the cost of lockdown.
Yeah.
You know, we're really struggling. Look at what we spent. Look at the mistakes that we've made. Look at the check-in, check-out scheme, the billions that they spent on that.
Yeah, 35 billion alone.
We need to recover some money. Then I could suck that up and could go, do you know what? I'm happy to put in.
Well,
but
I would maybe suck that up if they said
we'll
never lock down again. But what about the intellectual dishonesty, though, of some of the journalists?
The dishonesty is
because, you know, literally, you've got Beth Rigby trying to convince us all that it was just down to this one trust mini budget.
That's what the people will struggle with. It's a case of that might be a small element to it. But if they were completely honest and open with us, which we like, then we can suck it up as a nation. We can go, do you know what? You're right. Thank you for the integrity. Let's sort this out as a collective and get it done. Then I don't mind rising taxes or something like that.
And I think on that note, a really simple, it wouldn't be simple, a complicated but effective thing to do with the council tax would be to say each council has a list of things they have to pay for. They can consult the people who live there about which ones do you value and which ones can we scrap.
Yeah.
The bins have to go, but do we need a children's centre on every street, or can we have one fewer and farther between?
Now, I've just noticed something. Can you show me your hands, please? Because, Ant, obviously you have your beautiful tattoos.
Look, it goes all the way up.
But the ladies, have copied?
Yes, we've gone to the tattoo hand gang.
We've tattooed. You know how at school you draw on each other's hands in a boring lesson?
That's
Rebecca and I did.
Well, that's what's been going on in the green room.
Rebecca's is her daughters.
I'm glad you've been researching.
They're Ant's children.
That's your cat.
Yeah.
I suggested that Amanda should have diamonds on hers. She doesn't have kids, but she's got diamonds.
Now, look, we all know scheming Sturgeon lies in bed at night dreaming of turning back the clocks to the time when she lorded over Scots like a COVID authoritarian William Wallace. And today we had more proof that she's living in the past as the virtue signaller in chief once again donned a useless, grotty cloth face mask to receive her COVID booster and a flu jab at the same time for this embarrassing photo op that I think belongs back in 2020. And high on the memory of lockdown, she had this to say after the jab.
COVID is still circulating. We've had high rates of community circulation in recent weeks. Through the winter, we can all continue to take the basic steps to try to reduce transmission as much as possible. Good hand hygiene, wearing face coverings if you're in a crowded place and think that others around you might be vulnerable. So common sense remains our best friend as we try to counter this virus.
She said that today, folks. That is not an old clip. I promise you, that's not from 2020, 2021. She said that today. I mean, I really do hope this is the year Nicholas Scroogeon is finally visited by the ghost of Christmas past to snap her out of her scaremongering ways once and for all, because that is ridiculous. Rebecca Reid and Middleton, Amanda Patel, do stand by, because coming up, are I'm a Celebrity viewers being too forgiving of Matt Hancock, and is ITV irresponsible for giving the Health Secretary a platform to rehabilitate his image without asking tough questions? We're going to return to that in the media buzz. But first, as The Crown comes under fire from the palace and beyond, the Netflix programme's historical advisor Robert Lacey says its stinging criticism of the royals is accurate. He finally has his say straight after the break.
My name's Tom Harwood, and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GBNews.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me! And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
I'm Mark Dolan. Join me at 11 on GB News for Headliners, in which I'll be joined by two of the UK's top comedians discussing tomorrow's papers. If it's an important story, we'll cover it, but we'll have some fun along the way. Headliners, the late night paper review that won't send you to sleep like the others will. 7 nights a week at 11 p.m. on GB News.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing! You see, amazing!
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
Welcome back. Now, the 5th series of hit Netflix drama The Crown has been by far the most controversial yet, with accusations it is an all-out assault on the credibility, reputation, heart and soul of our beloved recently departed Queen Elizabeth II, her husband Prince Philip, the new monarch King Charles, and his late ex-wife Princess Diana. It's drawn backlash from furious critics, including Paul Burrell, widely regarded as Diana's rock in her final years, who tore into the show last night.
Well, I think this whole series is distasteful, cruel and inaccurate. You know, Dan, I was there for 21 years. I stood beside the Queen for 11 and Diana for 10. And these are my years, the years which I witnessed. And I'm finding it very difficult to find anything truthful in this series.
Well, here to set the record straight, none other than historical consultant to the Crown, man of the moment, one of the world's most highly regarded royal authorities and best-selling author, Robert Lacey. So, Robert, you've got to admit, you've had a lot of incoming these past few days since the release of The Crown. Paul Burrell says he struggles to find anything accurate in this series. How do you respond?
Well, there are some people who treat the monarchy with respect, as I do, as I'm sure you do. There are some people who treat it as an object of worship, and I am not one of those.
No, and I'm with you on that.
The sad fact is that this particular season of The Crown looks at our current king and queen when they were married to other people and were engaged in an adulterous relationship, which resulted in the breakup of their 2 marriages, with certainly great pain to one of the casualties, Diana, Princess of Wales. That is the unfortunate truth. Paul Burrell, that is the central truth. And I would have thought Paul Burrell, who lived so close to Diana in those years, would have seen that. Now, then one moves, I mean, there is truth. There is untruth. There is what we don't know. One of the problems about this whole debate is that a lot of The Crown is seeking to interpret conversations whose details we don't know. Peter Morgan, the author of The Crown, is famous for his play the audience, which is entirely based on imagining what the Prime Minister of the day said to the Queen. And we feel that the Crown produces a greater truth. In the first episode, for example, and do stop me when you want to have particular questions, the very first scene of the first episode shows the young Queen launching the royal yacht. Yes. I remember it all those years ago. And she proclaims that it's going to be called Britannia. Now, a purist could say that scene is incorrect because at the actual launching, she didn't launch it on her own. She launched it with Prince Philip beside her.
But the spirit is there. But
we think so.
Why not then, Robert, do what a lot of folk within the royal family, a lot of people in the government, the British government, including the former Culture Secretary, and now Dame Judi Dench have called for, and just have a disclaimer at the start of the episode that says, this isn't entirely real. It is based on truth, but it is our interpretation. And then you would avoid lots of this criticism, because you do know, Robert, lots of people around the world treat The Crown as a documentary, not a drama.
We're very proud that a lot of young people have come to understand through The Crown the way the British Constitution works. That in our system we don't elect a king every 4 years like they do in America. Yeah. We split that function and we have the elected head of government that we disagree about and the royal family that we agree about. That is the basis of what we see in The Crown. I'll answer you in two ways. One is that Netflix has put such a disclaimer on all the trailers for the film. But when it comes to showing the series, the logic of that is that before every episode of Morse or Endeavour, you should have a disclaimer saying, don't worry, you folk in Oxford, there isn't a murder here every week that gets investigated by the local police force. That would be we think, to insult the audience. I mean, this is a drama, and there is dramatic license. Now, Paul Burrell, whom you've just played, thinks that it's license in the wrong way. We would say it is license, which means freedom to explain greater truths.
Well, can we speak about some of the specifics?
Sure.
Because obviously you're the historical advisor to the show, so you know specifically about what happened, what didn't happen. Now, one of the very controversial moments in this series is when King Charles now, he was the Prince of Wales then, effectively lobbies the Prime Minister at the time, John Major, to encourage the Queen to abdicate. Now, Major himself has said, look, this is a load of nonsense.
Well, it's a load of nonsense so far as Mr. Major is concerned, and it's very good. It takes up my point that we're trying to report conversations we don't know about. But it is a fact. Mrs. Thatcher talked about the way in which, in 1988, Prince Charles did talk to Mrs. Thatcher, another premier, about the need for him to have more role. Who knows what he meant by that? Yeah. Diana's private secretary has said the Crown got the wrong premier. He didn't talk to Major, he talked to another premier. And also there were, in those years, a number of opinion polls in which 49% of people were saying the Queen should abdicate or give much more power to Charles. And so the idea that Charles would not have taken that up, I mean, in 1989, for example, he himself called for 10 private audiences with a whole range of government ministers that he wanted to talk to.
The Queen herself, and this was actually the area of the series that I had real issue with, actually. She's portrayed as brittle and cold and uncaring about her family. Why does Imelda Staunton portray her in that way? Because the Queen was always, including in the 1990s, very caring and compassionate towards her family.
Well, these were tough years. There are many who feel that Imelda Staunton was rather too cheery as a queen after Olivia Colman. And let's not forget, we are talking about a drama. We're talking about the penultimate act There's a final act.
Has only recently died. So you have to understand there are sensitivities at the moment.
I do, but I think people should also understand that Netflix is not a British broadcaster. It is an offshore streaming service. And if people... It only comes into your home if you choose to press the button and pay the money for it, which you did.
Now,
so you
Diana,
made the choice.
Diana, I want to speak specifically about her too, because there are some scenes where Diana is actually portrayed as someone who's very selfish, and her whole... the whole reason why the public loved Diana so much was actually because she did so much work behind the scenes that she never publicised, to be at hospitals, to care for people who were in bad situations. And there's a particular scene where her friend's husband is close to death and Diana is trying to flirt with Hancock Khan, the surgeon. And I can understand when friends of Diana say, this wasn't the real Diana. Why didn't you show her landmine campaign? Why didn't you show all of the great charity work that she did? She comes across in the series, this particular series, as being self-obsessed, fame-obsessed, and I feel like that was a fundamental misunderstanding of Diana.
Well, again, I think, Dan, that's your view of how she's portrayed. Many of the critics rave about the way in which Mr. Becky portrays Diana.
Well, by the way, she is a phenomenal actress, and I am not for a single second questioning that she has not got Diana right, but I guess I'm talking about the script that she's working with.
Well, Diana had a difficult side. Paul Burrell himself, I keep indicating this way because that's where your video screen is. Paul Burrell himself...
We're not going to bring him out.
...bore witness to that. The other thing I would just say is that of all the decades in recent royal history, this is a decade about which Prince Charles wrote a book totaling 750 pages. Diana herself put her own record into the printed world.
And that's told very faithfully, actually.
Yes.
And so is the Bashir interview.
Yes. And so you could say this is the decade in which the royals themselves wrote the script. They've given their point of view. Now the Crown has given.
So this is on them.
Well, it's not on them, but it's not even a decade. I mean, the Queen would have said, never complain, never explain. Yeah, but for some reason, people around the court of King Charles III have chosen to attract a great deal of attention to the Crown, and you are saying it's not really to their advantage.
No, indeed. Well, look, thank you so much for coming in and defending the Crown. I have to admit, I watched it all weekend, every single episode. It is absolutely addictive. Historical consultant to the Crown and best-selling author Robert Lacey. But coming up, as This Morning loses out on a TV Choice Award for the first time in 6 years, has Hughgate forever damaged the reputation of Holly and Phil? We caught up with Schofield hours after that damning defeat, and finally he cracked. So his first public comments and reaction from Fleet Street icon Calvin McKenzie, who called for him to be sacked in Uncancelled at 10:45. But first, our I'm a Celeb viewers being too forgiving of Matt Hancock, and is ITV irresponsible for giving the Health Secretary a platform to rehabilitate his image without asking the tough questions? My superstar panel, Ant Middleton, Amanda Patel and Rebecca Reed, are back to give their verdict next. I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
We are GB News.
And we'd like to say thank you
to each and every one of you
for helping our great nation
find its voice.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Across England, Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland.
On TV,
on radio
and online.
We're proud to be
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
On the Mark Steyn Show, we cover the stories a lot of people are scared even to mention. The stuff that really matters with some of the world's biggest thinkers.
Now is his opportunity to kind of take the steering wheel of history.
Break away from the flock at 8 o'clock on GB News with the Mark Steyn Show.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something good happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky.
That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg.
And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak. Stop talking.
My God, we reached the end. I've never been early in my life. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join my show Farage, 7 p.m. till 8 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and there you will get opinion, analysis, debate, and I'll cover stories that nobody else dares to touch.
You've been cancelled. Join the club.
Oh my goodness me. And then for the last 15 minutes, talking pints. We're over a drink. We have a civilised conversation with someone. We very often disagree, but we do it in a grown-up way. Come and join me on Farage.
So let's return to tomorrow's news site now in our media buzz. We've got lots of front pages. The Metro leads on those worrying reports of Russian missiles hitting Poland and a potentially alarming escalation of the war in Ukraine. The missile said to have killed 2 in a village near the border. Reporting on the same story, the I headline reads, Putin's war spills into Poland. It was always the risk, wasn't it? Front page of the Daily Star, very different tone. The Three Lions are going to be humpy-grumpy in Qatar, not because of the country's disgraceful human rights record, but due to noisy camels gathering outside their hotel at night. My superstar panel back now. Top Daily Mail columnist Amanda Platel, the adventurer, author and SAS star Ant Middleton, and the journalist Rebecca Reed. Now, aggrieved critics of Matt Hancock have taken to the skies to send the disgraced former Health Secretary a message as he tries to shirk responsibility in the I'm a Celebrity jungle. So a plane today, this was organised by the COVID-19 Bereaved Families for Justice group, circled the Australian camp for 2 hours with a 10-metre banner that read, COVID bereaved, say get out of here. Look, I've also been protesting this show, but actually for different reasons. Until now, I've boycotted the lockdown architect's blatant propaganda mission that was gifted to him by the shameless bosses at ITV. But I can no longer allow sickening moments like this to go totally unchallenged.
You know what it is, actually? What I'm really looking for is a bit of forgiveness. That's what I'm really looking for.
Hey.
Well, that's great.
Oh my God, I nearly cried then.
Just say that. Well done.
So did I.
Sucked in, my God. That deluded narcissist shouldn't be able to escape tough questions about what his ruinous lockdown policies and authoritarian streak did to this country. And something terrible is happening in the jungle, folks. The public are taking the bait and seem to be forgetting all the terrible things he did, that he's paid to be an MP and that he has abandoned his constituents. They're falling in love with him. So according to the bookmaker William Hill, Hancock is now shockingly joint third favourite to be crowned king of the jungle, only trailing behind Mike Tindall and Jill Scott. I mean, Ant Middleton, I have to say, this has angered me because I actually think ITV have gifted him this propaganda opportunity. It's going to make it much more difficult now for Hancock to be properly grilled in the inquiry that's to come. And I also feel like, actually, people just have such short memories. That's the problem. Because he's now a celebrity. He's not a politician. This is what he wanted.
Yeah, as a nation, we have a horrible tendency to forgive and forget very quickly. If someone rolls over, we scratch their belly and they smile and all of a sudden, he's back in the game. But, we're at in a time of political sort of demise, political sort of crumbling, and he's out in the jungle pretending to be Mr. Nice Guy, asking for forgiveness with his crocodile tears. It's embarrassing.
Actually addressing what he did.
It's actually embarrassing to watch that and to see that. It makes you cringe inside because, when he was up there, whilst people couldn't visit their families, couldn't visit their loved ones, and all the shenanigans behind the scenes, and all of a sudden he's coming out going, no, you must adhere to this, we're all doing it, and then behind the scenes he's off playing games. He's almost like a uni student that's come out of a fraternity straight into the House of Parliament.
Isn't it brilliant that family, we only just heard about that in the last few minutes, that sign that they ran around the jungle. They had the guts to get out there and say what millions of people are actually thinking, which is, this is the man who said, I'm putting my arm around, as health secretary, I'm putting my arm around the care homes, and then sent people back to care homes knowing they had COVID or that care home was full of COVID.
Which caused tens of thousands of deaths.
Which is unforgivable.
Yeah. Well, it caused tens of thousands of deaths, and then that's why he became such a lockdown authoritarian, Rebecca, because he had to make up for that terrible early decision. And that decision, I've researched it in depth, that decision was on Hancock. He got the advice and he chose to release the patients.
The bit, so I watched it on TikTok because I can't bring myself to watch the actual programme.
Good, because you'll be watching Dan Wootton tonight at 9 p.m.
As I do every night, and when it's
She's
not on,
on
I
it.
watch repeats.
Not every night.
Yeah, I wish. But I was watching the full clip that's extracted from, and there's this bit that's like almost like as a writer, it's a really interesting piece of characterisation. He's lying there on this hammock, and someone's like, "Did you get a lockdown fine?" And he goes, "No, I wouldn't have." And they were like, "Oh, but you broke that law, didn't you?" And the softness he's been playing the entire time slips, and he goes, "Well, it wasn't a law at that point; it was guidance." And then he goes back to his sort of like, "But I am just looking for a bit of forgiveness." He is still the little weasel underneath. He's just doing an act the whole time. He is so manipulative, and I am most disappointed in Chris Moyles because he is a very smart man, and he's in there with him.
He's done nothing to
Totally, he was like, yeah.
Well, what about Charlene White, meant to be one of the country's top journalists?
To be fair, she's done more than anyone. She's done better than anyone else.
She gave him a softball question on the first night and then moved on, and she is meant to be the face of ITV News.
I am available.
Yeah,
Would you give me the week off to go and join? Because I'll go.
Exactly that. They're useless. You look at Matt Hancock as well. Sorry, Amanda.
No.
You look at Matt Hancock as well.
You can do that again. And again.
Amanda, calm down.
You look at Matt Hancock and the insincerity in his voice and in his delivery of we must stay at home.
Can you
he's
really
like
see?
A puppet
Can you
on a
really hear
string.
that?
He's not really. There's someone puppeteering above him.
So
he's like a puppet on a string.
Do you think he was a useful idiot during
100%. And, you know that by the way Boris acted, by the way he acted behind the scenes. They knew it wasn't serious. They knew that the message, the agenda was to push it upon the people to control the situation. No, which you can't. And he was, and I do feel for him a little bit. He was a puppet on strings then.
But see, I can't forgive him for that because I'm sorry. In those moments,
no, you can't.
That's when you judge the character of someone.
It's unforgivable.
And sorry.
If they asked you, if they said, come and do the last week and you can be in with Matt Hancock, would you go in?
Absolutely not. I've got a show to do here.
I know, but you can...
9 o'clock. GB News, baby.
The big question.
No, look, I had Matt Hancock in here, right? And because the other thing that's really annoyed me is that Matt Hancock has done a whole load of softball interviews over the past
soft porn interviews?
No, softball.
Oh, sorry.
Softball. So basically,
what he was doing with Gina.
He's controlled the questions and he said, I won't talk about that. I wanted to have him here because I've been running on the show a lockdown inquiry to look into all aspects of lockdown. He was one of the architects of lockdown. But I was absolutely insistent, if you come in here... I wanted to do it for an hour. He refused, but we got him for half.
Go in the jungle, you get all day.
But I made it absolutely clear, nothing is off limits. I'm going to present you the facts of your decision-making. I don't give a damn about your personal life. And I spent weeks and weeks researching because I wanted to make sure that he hadn't just been unfairly characterised for making those really bad decisions at the start. And unfortunately, it is on him. He had the advice and he chose to ignore
Do you know
it.
what, Dan? You're exactly right. And that's the government across the field. If the government could just be honest with us, we're not stupid, we're not idiots.
Yeah.
We know what's going on.
Exactly, I made a mistake.
And if people are just
We
honest
made
with
the
us,
misjudgment.
then we
weird
can be forgiving.
Yeah.
We can be forgiving.
But he hasn't done that.
But no, the government aren't even honest with themselves now. Look at
even now, he is trying to say it wasn't a mistake, even after the court case.
Yeah.
But I think you're right. I think what would actually be a clean slate here would be to say, do you know what, guys? It was a weird time. We didn't know what was going on.
Absolutely.
We were fighting fires, and we're sorry that we screwed it up. And that
we got it wrong. We got it ridiculously wrong.
Because, and here's how
the
we're going to
problem is he then swung completely the other way, denied all of our freedoms for 2 years, was one of those dangerous folk within the cabinet lobbying for harder restrictions all the time, and I just think that's the outrage. Another thing I'm outraged about today, though, the virtue
I'm with you, Dan, I'm with you.
of both the holier and richer than thou England team and the ultra-woke airline Virgin Atlantic, which came crashing down. Not the plane, by the way, thank God, but the morality around the plane in one fell swoop as Gareth Southgate's men jetted off to the World Cup. So while they've shrugged off calls to boycott the tournament over Qatar's terrible human rights record, the England team made the allegedly significant gesture of flying out to a nation where homosexuality is illegal on a rainbow aircraft. So what exactly makes this a gay-friendly aircraft, I hear you ask? Why, that would be the tiny figure in rainbow-clad trainers, barely visible to the Qataris from the tarmac, let alone at 42,000 feet. That's it. But on top of that, the desperately PC Virgin Atlantic was sheepishly forced to confirm that they'd scrapped their much-hyped gender-neutral uniform policy designed to, quote, champion the individuality of its employees for the England flight. Virgin explained it considers safety and risk in destinations on a case-by-case basis, and that the new uniform rules are only being rolled out in countries, quote, more accepting of non-binary identities.
Can I also say, Dan, they were one of the last places, if not still doing, who had a discrimination policy of only hiring attractive people. So you wear a skirt or trousers, but only if you're sexy.
Yeah. Well, and also, wear a skirt or trousers, but not if we're flying to Qatar. I'm sorry,
you might not come out of Qatar.
Mad
Is that
about
not
this.
just for Richard Branson? He's the ultimate opportunist.
But I think your view on this, Ant, though, and I agree with you, actually, is I don't give a damn if you want to go to Qatar, but just stop all of the virtue signaling.
Do you know what? That's the worst. Again, I can't watch it. It just makes me cringe. It's so obvious and in your face and out there. It's just like, just say it how it is. Yeah. Go out there if you want to go out there. Don't go out there if you don't want to go. Especially with myself. I was brought up in, adhere to the way of the land. Not that I agree with them, but adhere to the layout of the land and the rules and respect the culture. If you like that, go there. If you don't, don't. But all this virtual signalling it just makes it even worse. It just gives some
Unless,
people...
of course, when you were going in kind of killing people.
Yeah, well, that's different.
Respect them, kill them, but do it politely.
I was protecting this country.
Take your shoes off before you shoot them.
And Middleton, Rebecca Reid, thank you so much. Do stand by. But coming up, was Prime Minister Rishi Sunak wrong to dismiss concerns about Dominic Raab's alleged bullying? It's not bullying, by the way. Throwing a tomato across the room, ridiculous. We'll debate as I crown today's greatest Britain and Union jackass. But first, as this morning loses out on a public voted TV Choice Award for the first time in 6 years, has Qgate forever damaged the reputation of Holly and Phil? So after that damning defeat, Philip Schofield speaks out for the first time on the controversy, and Fleet Street icon Calvin McKenzie, who called for his sacking, remember, is going to react to all of that coming up straight after the break.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
And the national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here. You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Hello, I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m, where I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians as we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight. If it's a big story, we'll be covering it, I guarantee, but we'll also have some fun along the way. That's GB News Headliners at 11 p.m. We won't put you to sleep, unlike some of the other paper review shows out there. So join us, 11 p.m, 7 nights a week.
Hello there, it's Eamon Holmes here from Breakfast on GB News. We're not just on your television and your screens, you know.
We're on DAB plus digital radio, so you can listen to your favourite shows on the move.
If you've not yet listened to GB News Radio, it's very simple. We're on your radio player and TuneIn apps, on your smart speaker, phone or tablet, or online at gbnews.uk.
Take us with you wherever you go. GB News Radio.
You never have to miss a moment of the People's Channel.
Join me, Arlene Foster, for the briefing on GB News. Every Friday at 3 p.m, I'll give you all the latest political news and analysis, and we'll have robust live debate. To make sure that you're caught up on all of the biggest issues of the day, we'll bring on experts in their field. I'll ask the questions that you'd like to ask. We're not afraid to tackle discussions from all perspectives, including yours. Don't forget, the briefing with me, Arlene Foster, every Friday at 3 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Alastair Stewart, and I'd invite you to join me at noon on Saturdays and Sundays for Alastair Stewart and Friends. I've been in this business for over 40 years. Now, here at GB News, I've never been happier. I get to choose the big stories that really interest me. We hear what you have to say, and you hear what I have to say. I really hope you can join me, noon on Saturdays and Sundays.
It's time now for Uncancelled. And this is where Britain's top commentators speak out on controversial issues without the fear of the cancel culture sweeping the rest of the media. Now, it looks like the Q-Gate scandal, remember that, may have forever tarnished the reputation of ITV's former golden couple, Philip Schofield and Holly Willoughby. Last night, this morning, lost out on the Best Daytime Show gong for the first time in 6 years at the TV Choice Awards, which is entirely voted for by the British public. The furore over Holly and Phil getting a fast pass to see the late Queen Elizabeth II line in state in September was first thrust back into the agenda last week when the Guido Fawkes political blog revealed more than 700 accredited journalists from various broadcasters and newspapers also jumped the line. I wasn't one of them, by the way. I would never have done that. But following these bombshell updates on one of the most infamous stories of the year, my senior producer, Ben Leo, caught up with Philip Schofield today to ask if he felt it was time to apologise or if he now felt vindicated. Here's what happened when Scof broke his silence for the very first time.
Hello, Phil.
Hello there.
Sorry to bother you. Ben from GB News.
You've really got nothing better.
Guido Fawkes article. Do you feel vindicated?
I think that it was a shame that what happened.
It's a lot of people saying that you were unfairly targeted. Is that something you'd agree with?
I think we were.
I guess the problem was that you were never accredited, or
We were.
well, your names were down under your editor's name. Is that right?
We didn't want to give our email addresses away.
Do you want to apologise? Because you've never actually owned the situation or apologised for it.
I apologise.
Well, because
You've already seen that 700 other journalists did exactly the same thing.
but they were accredited, and also you never filmed anything. Nothing was ever broadcast.
You weren't allowed to film inside.
Because one of your colleagues, an insider at the show, has told us that there was never a plan to film anything to start with.
A bit late on the story, mate.
Well, this is a new update.
And at that point, he swiftly went inside. Joining me now, one of the tens of thousands who called on Holly and Phil to be sacked for Q-Gate, Fleet Street legend Calvin Mackenzie. So, Calvin, look, we've heard from Philip there, but I think the key point is those 700-odd journalists who also skipped the queue were officially accredited. Holly and Phil were not. And when Schofield insists we weren't allowed to film, that's directly contradicting ITV's statement at the time that they were there to record for their show.
Yes, I mean, that was the most ludicrous part about it. Of course, nobody was going to film inside. There was only one camera that was allowed, fixed cameras. You know, this wasn't an FA Cup or a World Cup, you know. So the idea was that they would go in there, if they were accredited, go round, come back out, and then talk about what they said. That's what they would do under any other circumstances with any other event. And it never happened. And it never happened because this morning never planned to run anything about with Philip and Holly involved in it.
Yeah.
Everybody knew it. And the whole thing was a flim-flam. And it
Yeah, they basically saw the controversy exploding, didn't they? Pulled out their little mobile phone and thought, oh, my goodness, we've got to get something on camera.
Whereas normally they would turn up, as you would expect, with your camera crew, wait outside, and then come out and do a piece to camera. I mean, after all, they're massive professionals. Schofield's been doing it since 1998. He's been doing it for 24 years. There's probably nobody better at doing all this kind of stuff. So they got themselves caught up. The issue for ITV all the time is that commercially they're not doing very well. So they have these two stars there. They have to defend them at any price. And in fact, if you remember rightly, Schofield complained because nobody had come out immediated to defend them. There was this rather odd gap. Do you remember that gap involving when Diana died, and there was a gap before the Queen basically expressed the sorrow of herself and the royal family. Well, this was the same with ITV. ITV knew what the situation was. They had to sit there and work something out. They sit there and worked it out. And now Schofield has to deal with this, and this won't go away for him. And what I suspect will happen now is that over a matter of time now, probably over the next, I would have thought by the spring of next year, it will be announced that Philip's standing down. After all, he can't complain. He's had a fantastic run. There will be a fairly large queue to hire Holly and a reasonable sized queue to hire Schofield. But this will be
But was it a
permanent
mistake,
staple.
Calvin? Was it a mistake for him today not to apologise, not to just hold his hands up and say, yep, we got this wrong, show a bit of humility?
Well, I think the problem for them is that them having decided what the story was, then he had nothing to apologise for. So if nothing had ever been said, he could have come out and said, I made a mistake there. I'm a great fan of the Queen. I had to go and see her. I had the opportunity. But he ended up in the bad PR position of David Beckham looking like a greater PR god than him. I mean, Beckham queued up for hours on end. Why wouldn't Schofield do it? He'd be enormously popular in that queue if Beckham was. And Beckham, by the way, is trousering 15 million quid or 150 million quid or 1.5 billion quid to support the Qataris. And he's more popular than Schofield.
But he stood in the queue. He stood in the queue, and it just slightly saved his reputation. Calvin McKenzie, former editor of the Sun newspaper. Thank you so much, Calvin. We will speak next week. But it's time now to reveal tonight's Greatest Britain in Union Jackass. So, Amanda Patel, who's your GB?
Rishi Sunak for defending Dominic Raab against no allegations by a bunch of woke, Home Office, whatever, Foreign Office he was.
Well, bullying is now
officials.
just having a tough conversation.
Bullying is obscene behaviour, is chucking you a Pret sandwich and a little tomato falling out on the floor.
Ludicrous. Ant Middleton, your nominee?
Who are we going with, first of all?
Greatest Britain.
Greatest Britain. It's King Charles III. He's, for what he's gone through at the moment, the way he's, comporting himself, the way he handles himself, he's still grieving and he's keeping this country alive. He's uniting the people. He's going out and doing his piece, putting a brave face on for the country.
Rebecca Reid, your nominee.
Some extremely hard-hitting news here. Rosie the dog, who got lost in Loughborough and then handed herself in to the police station. That is a very nice dog.
Great.
I hadn't heard about it, but of course, Rosie the dog. Come on, Greatest Britain. Absolutely incredible. Union Jackass time now, Amanda Patel. Who are you going for?
It's the entire England football squad, I'm afraid, for resorting to such stupid little gestures. You can't even see that guy's rainbow trainers on the plane. It is a complete joke. They should be ashamed of themselves. I don't think it's going to give the gay police in Qatar many sleepless nights.
Ant Middleton, your Union Jackass nominee.
As Piers Morgan would say, the man that put cock in Hancock. It's Matt Hancock for me.
And we know why. We know why. We had that full discussion. And Rebecca Reid, your nominee.
I'm a broken record on this, but the Iranian government, who continue to oversee basically a genocide against women, gay people, and anybody who doesn't want to wear hijab, anybody female who doesn't want to wear hijab.
Yeah, no, it's a disgraceful situation. Of course it is. But look, I'm going to go light-hearted. I hope you forgive me, Rebecca Reid, but it's got to be Matt Hancock, right?
Yes.
Because I think we just need to remind everyone this isn't a joke.
Yeah.
He should be representing his constituents. He should be in Parliament. He is turning our Westminster system into a laughingstock, actually. Amanda Platel, Ant Middleton, first time, and I hope you'll come back. And Rebecca Reid, fabulous superstar panel. I'm back again tomorrow night from 9 p.m. Thank you so much for your company. Headliners is up next, though. Good night.
My name is Andrew Doyle. Join me every Sunday evening at 7 p.m. for Free Speech Nation. This is a show where we address current affairs and news stories of the week with the help of two wonderful comedian panellists. I brought in comics because I want to give it a lighter edge, and also they work for less. See you there.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
We are GB News, and we'd like to say thank you to each and every one of you for bringing us your conversations, for helping our great nation find its voice. We are here for you on radio, television, and online, across England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland.
It's not the BBC, you actually get your facts right.
We are proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday on GB News, it's Bev Turner Today from 10 a.m. There's never been a more interesting but also critical time in British politics, and I can't wait to bring you the biggest stories of the day with the best factual accuracy and also a few of my own opinions thrown in. We'll engage in passionate but always polite debate with your thoughts and opinions at the centre of it all. Monday to Thursday, 10 till 12 on TV, on radio and online.
Every Friday and Sunday night from 9, it's Mark Dolan Tonight.
We're on the same page again. There's something good happening.
Let Ian finish. Don't be such a cranky.
That mini budget was the tip of the iceberg.
And on Saturday, my show just got bigger. From 8, it's Mark Dolan's Saturday Night In.
You can't govern a country if you can't speak. Stop talking.
My God, we reached the end. I've never been early in my life. Only on GB News, the People's Channel.
We are GB News, right across the nation. You can get us on television, on radio, on digital. We're absolutely everywhere.
Amazing. You see, amazing.
You remind me of me in the European Parliament. But here's the most important bit. We are not part of the mainstream establishment. We think and speak just like you do. We are the People's Channel.
Magnificent. That's really, really thoughtful.
Come and join us on GB News, the People's News Channel.
You're with GB News. Headliners is next, but first let's bring you the headlines. And the top story on GB News, the Prime Minister says the government is urgently looking into reports of a missile strike in Poland after 2 people died in an explosion close to the Ukraine border. Unverified local media reports suggest 2 stray missiles hit a grain store in the village of Przewodów. Russia's defence ministry has denied responsibility, calling it a deliberate provocation. However, the Polish government says it is raising the readiness now of its military units. Rishi Sunak says he's coordinating with international partners, including NATO. Meanwhile, Ukraine's President Zelensky has described the incident in Poland as a significant escalation of the conflict. It comes after a day in which Russia launched around 100 missiles at Ukrainian cities, with Kyiv calling it the heaviest wave of strikes since the start of the war. In a video address, Volodymyr Zelensky said the attacks have left some of the country's energy infrastructure in a critical condition. Here, the Prime Minister's told GB News dealing with illegal migration is his #1 challenge. Rishi Sunak also said he wants to reduce legal net migration, but refused to say by how much. The UK signed a deal with France last week in an effort to boost cross-channel cooperation. It comes as the National Crime Agency told GB News many Albanian criminals are falsely claiming they've been trafficked to the UK against their will. Mr Sunak says tackling migrant crossings is his priority.
Right now, our #1 challenge is getting a grip of the number of illegal migrants coming, and that's the thing I want to focus on first. I think that's what, by the way, the British public rightly want us to focus on. Our deal with the French this week is the first in a series of things that we'll need to do, but people should rest assured that this is a huge priority for me.
The Housing Secretary, Michael Gove, says the death of a toddler who suffered prolonged exposure to mould is an unacceptable tragedy. 2-year-old Awab Ishaq, who lived in a one-bed housing association flat in Greater Manchester, died from a respiratory condition directly caused by the mould in December 2020. Rochdale Coroner's Court heard the little boy's father had complained to the local council but was told just to paint over the mould. The Chief Executive of Rochdale Borough-wide Housing, Gareth Swarbrick, says we have and will continue to learn hard lessons from this. You're up to date on TV, online and DAB+ radio. You're with GB News, where now it's time for Headliners.
Hello, good evening. I am Simon Evans. Welcome to Headliners. I'm going to be taking you through Wednesday's newspapers along with two fantastic comedians in the form of Leo Kearse and Roger Monkhouse. Good evening, gentlemen. So, let's take a look at the front pages. We start with the Daily Mail. Universities are told to decolonise maths and computing. That is quite a conundrum. And Mail writer who dares admit she fancies Matt Hancock.